know that you're not a manager, you're a leader. You're a leader that has management responsibilities, but you're not a manager, you're a leader. And when you lead people, and people are complicated. And so just be prepared to be a leader that loves your people. And I think the best leaders that I've ever worked for are the people that love their people.
Mhm.
And don't lead if you can't love.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Kerrie Jordan. Welcome to our show where we talk strategy with leaders in manufacturing, warehousing, and supply chain. Today, I'm speaking with Kevin Thompson, a seasoned leadership coach at Cambridge Air Solutions with over 30 years of experience in financial management and team building. Now, before transitioning into his current role, Kevin served as the Chief Financial Officer at Cambridge Air Solutions for 13 years. He was also previously CFO at Coin Acceptors and CFO at Royal Vendors. Now, Cambridge Air Solutions is a leader in the design, manufacture, and application of commercial and industrial space heating, ventilation, and evaporative cooling products. Essentially, they help create better indoor working environments through even temperatures and improved indoor air quality in warehouses, manufacturing facilities, sports facilities, and other high bay spaces. They are innovators here as well. Cambridge has invested heavily in research and development to offer high temperature heating and ventilation products, or HTHV products, that significantly save energy and reduce operating costs. In fact, today, more than 37,000 system installations have been completed using Cambridge equipment, and 2.5 billion square feet of buildings have benefited from their products. Now, I am really looking forward to this conversation because building high functioning teams and leaders is a very complex, as we all know, yet critical competency for any business or organization, and truly needed now more than ever. So, Kevin, welcome and thank you for joining the show.
Yeah, Kerrie, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Been looking forward to it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, would you mind sharing a little bit about your background and your role at Cambridge Air Solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. About just blessed with a 35-year career in the manufacturing world, most of it with the two companies that you mentioned, Coin Acceptors and Cambridge Air Solutions, have been able to play several roles from kind of, CFO throughout. I've been COO, GM of a division. And so I just love things being built and building things and seeing how things are built. And I think giving me a little bit of a unique perspective in my primary CFO role, being able to be kind of more integrated into operations and being able to see. I think what sometimes we as CFOs can miss is really the intense people side of manufacturing. And so the last 15 years here at Cambridge, and played both the COO and the CFO role, and recently transitioned into what I call semi-retirement. The company's graciously walked with me as I retired from the CFO role and helped onboard my replacement. And then we had this unfunded position that we wanted to do for a while, and they said, "Why don't you take a run at it?" And so I did. I certified in a methodology that's really powerful, and I have 11 coaching clients now, inside Cambridge and one outside company.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
And that's wonderful that your organization has done that with you. And
really is.
I think it's so great that your teams get to benefit from that certification, that skill set, and just working with you on a day-to-day basis still. So I understand that Cambridge Air Solutions is very focused on being people-centered. It certainly sounds that way, is the way you've described it. Now, how has this approach influenced the company's success?
That's a great question. Cambridge is a 61-year-old second generation family owned business, and it's always been successful in one way, shape, or form. But I would say about 10 years ago, we decided we were going to be very, very intentional about building a people centric company. And it's the passion of our owner. John Kramer, he has a saying. He says he doesn't build heaters. He actually wants to enrich lives. It's our why statement. We exist to glorify God by enriching the quality of every life we touch. And his goal is he says, I want people to go home to be better mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, children, whatever they are. I want them to go home better than they came. And that has always resonated with me and I've loved it. And so we've always been successful, but decided to be really, really intentional about what that looked like because we had marginal success with it, I think, in the past.
Mm.
And so we did some Dale Carnegie training a while back and, the 30 principles and how to win friends and influence people. And the third principle is arouse in others the eager want. And I think that concept is probably central to whatever success we've seen over the last 10 years with our move into a very people-centric approach. When you think about it, people want you to know what they want and what they need. And we have to have the capability to listen carefully and help them understand what they want and what they need and do that with them. And so if you think about success for any company is actually in building and sustaining the best relationships you can with three primary groups: your employees, your team members, your vendors, and your customers. And so I think for us, that concept of just focusing on those three things and serving those three entities, those three bodies, with our why statement of enriching. We were talking earlier, if we're willing to give just to enrich, not because we want something from you, we know the natural consequence of that is going to be success in many different ways, shapes, and forms. And I think finally, the company's success has been shaped around deep work around understanding what our values are. And so our core values are unconditional love and high expectations, care, courage, and respect. And we lead to those values. I will honestly tell you, when I was in a senior leadership role, even today, there wasn't a day went by that we didn't authentically lead to those values and challenge ourselves to those values. And so I would say that's what's really been central to our success. Knowing your why, know your values, live to your values, lead to your values, and create the eager want.
How motivational, not only for your team members, but I imagine anybody within the ecosystem, your community who's working. I mean, customers certainly, but suppliers, partners, and then those who interact with you. And I bet employees' families also really appreciate that because it sounds like you have the kind of work environment where you encourage work-life balance and flexibility. And that's wonderful. Can you talk a little bit more about the key elements of the leadership strategy that you follow and that you advocate?
Yeah, I don't know that I could say that we have it developed into a really refined strategy, although that's the work we are doing. We're a manufacturing company, so standard work process is obviously very, very important to us. And so
Mm.
we do a number of different things, but we have a central leadership training program that we co-developed with a woman named Cheryl Jekyll, and she has her own company, and she developed this, and we use it. It's called CORE, CORE. We just graduated, I think, our fourth or fifth cohort. We've trained probably north of 60, maybe as close to 80 leaders, and we're only about a 180-person company, so we have about 80 people that we've sent through that program. And it reinforces everything I just described to you, how to lead people in a way that is both the things that we know we should have, accountability and responsibility, but also to be able to, acknowledge, encourage, learn how to listen, learn how to coach. You think about our leadership behavior. At any one time, we're doing one of four things, right? We're either directing somebody's behavior, we're teaching them how to do something, we're coaching them, or we're mentoring them. And so just understanding the distinction between those four things: which role am I in and when? Which role do I want to be intentional about staying in? When I have to exit a role, how do I effectively exit that and stay well in another role? It's just a beautiful way. So that, I would say, that's the basis for our leadership strategy, I would say. And then our values: courage, care, respect. We say love all the time. Unconditional love is people use the word care. That's fine. We use love. Great book by Joel Manby called Love Works that he wrote a number of years ago, and was pretty transformational for us to understand love as a verb, not as an emotion necessarily. So at Cambridge, we love you for who you are, not what you do, but we have high expectations for what you do.
We'll include links to all this information for our listeners.
Great.
So they can make sure
Great.
that they can get access to this. Yes, this is wonderful. So can I ask you to, as your experience over the years and your role, as you had explained, changed from CFO to leadership coach, how has your style developed, or how you follow these and maybe express them with your teams? How has that evolved over time?
That's a funny one because it's changed a lot. I mean, a lot. I would say it's interesting. When I was a younger leader, I would say like when I was a controller, maybe my early years as CFO, actually when I worked for Coin Acceptors, they affectionately called me the answer man. And because, I could often answer a question that somebody had, and it was almost a little bit of a joke, but I took kind of pride into the fact that they called me the answer man. And now when I look back on that, I kind of cringe because I realized that's not actually what I was supposed to be doing. I was not supposed to be the answer man. I was supposed to be the coach. I was supposed to be the leader. And so I think that concept, and I run into this in my coaching, interestingly, is that concept of going from player to player, coach to coach, and how difficult that transition can be for strong players, if you're using a sports analogy.
Mm.
And often in my coaching, what I find is people can make the leaders as they evolve and grow can make the transition from player to player coach, but they'll also often lock up from player coach to coach because it really means giving up so much control, and it means making yourself vulnerable. It means creating trust with the people that are working with you and for you. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest transitions for me now, from CFO to being, highly analytical, very, very performance driven, being the answer man, those kind of things now to really, and I still am learning this in my coaching. You called me something, I don't know what you called me, but I'm not what you called me. I'm still new at coaching. And so in a formal sense, and so I would say, within the last couple of years, every time I have a coaching session, I learn something. I learn something about myself. I learn something about the other individual. I think active listening, curiosity, huge changes for me, going from having the answer to being curious. I mean, and not just like in my marriage, in my life, in my role as a father and a grandfather. I mean, all of those things, just trying to remain curious. In my coaching sessions, I find myself keeping questions. Don't teach, stay in questions. And so I think that's probably it. And then finally, probably the concept that I don't today have any positional power. Not that I leverage that, or I've always believed power is relational, but my power now is my authority is exclusively relational. Any authority that I have is earned and it's relational and comes from no title at all. And that's actually been startling and freeing in some respects. And it's been a real challenge to me to make sure that I'm building that credibility through trust and in my coaching relationships, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. So you mentioned you're a grandfather and a father. If I could just ask you, how does this then, like, how do you see this from like in a personal side when it comes to being a leadership coach?
Wow,
I know.
we need another podcast. I'll just give you one example so I've been married for almost 40 years. My wife and I have 7 children together that range from 9 to 36, and we have 8 grandchildren.
Wow.
And so we've been married a long time, great marriage. And I was about 5 years ago, I was just curious how this whole Cambridge experience has been affecting my relationship with her. And I asked her one day, I said, am I a better husband since I've been working at Cambridge? And she didn't even hesitate. She said, oh, absolutely.
Really?
And I said, well, then that begs the question, how bad was I before? She said, no, 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 no. You've always been a great husband, but you're better. And she described those things I described, like you're curious, you're calmer, you listen better. She just described the things that we've been working so hard on here at Cambridge as leaders together. And that was so encouraging to me. And it's one of the things I do in my coaching now is I try to assure people that the work that we're doing on leadership behaviors that they're trying to improve will get reflected in their personal life. It's just natural. The things that we're broken in or we need work on in our own leadership always translate into other relationships in our life, close relationships. And it's real fun because I often joke that I'm actually doing a therapy session, not a coaching session. I'm barely a qualified coach. I'm certainly not a qualified therapist. But it's so interesting because coaching clients will just open up ultimately about what's going on in their personal life because the parallels are perfect. It's actually one of the things I enjoy the most about coaching and being kind of exclusively full-time with it now.
That's fascinating and really interesting how it can affect you personally. Now, if we're thinking about the professional side from a business standpoint, I imagine people might be listening and thinking, this is inspiring. I want to do this, but it's hard, to fold it into the day to day. Why would you encourage people to do so, even though it certainly would be a change and perhaps take some time? And then how do you encourage them to fold it in on a day-to-day basis from an operational perspective,
Yeah.
so that it's not something that's like a one and done, but it continues to influence and has lasting effects?
Yeah, that's a great question. At my core, it's the concept of joy. We actually have an advisory board member who wrote a book called Joy Inc. Menlo Innovations up in Michigan. Rich is just a remarkable man, and he talks about that concept of joy just being such an integral part of if we do things right, it creates joy. And I'm not talking about happiness, haha. I'm talking about like that deep joy that comes from satisfaction of doing a job well and
Mhm.
knowing that you're appreciated and those types of things. And so I think the why, I would say the why, like if somebody's saying, okay, it is hard, it's super hard. Leadership is hard. We have a lot of managers, we don't have a lot of leaders. Yeah, that's a whole another podcast.
Yep.
We're gonna have to do some more podcasts. I can point you to some people better than me for them, but it's worth it. I would just say it's worth it.
Mhm.
We have a concept here at Cambridge called 1U. So we talk about having work life. You said it, work life balance, right? Well, you don't have a work life and a personal life. You have one life. There's
Yeah.
1U, and that 1U comes to work, and that 1U goes home to your family, and that 1U has hobbies, and that 1U is an accountant. It's one person. And that one person comes to work. And when they come to work, they bring their personal life to work. If you had a bad day, you had a fight with your spouse, your kids are acting up, whatever, or a good day, you bring that baggage to work. And if we treat you badly, you take that baggage home. I don't remember where I heard this, but I remember it was an inflection point for me in my leadership. The concept that leadership, it was Bob Chapman's book, Everybody Matters. Leadership is stewardship. And what I do today with the people for whom I'm responsible will have the most influence on how they treat their family when they go home. So think about the enormity of that responsibility and that blessing to be able to have that influence, but the responsibility of doing it poorly. And if I treat somebody badly, do they go home and treat somebody badly because they're frustrated and angry and whatever? And so, and it's again, our whole business isn't built about that. I mean, we obviously are data driven, and we're doing all the traditional HR stuff, and we have to hire and fire, and we have to do all that stuff. I'm not suggesting we don't, but being able to do it in a way that honors people, no matter what it is, to be able to reflect your values, no matter what it is. So when we have to fire somebody, we call it leave well. We actually do it in a way that reflects care and respect. We try. And so I think that's the why for me is you create that joy for the whole organization, and that joy then gets reflected into engagement. It's not just their joy, but that's the Gallup engagement concept,
Mhm.
right? We're a Gallup company. And so are they involved in their work and the workplace? They'll come and do work and not be involved in the workplace. I want them deeply engaged in both. It's the old hands, head, heart, right? You can get their hands really easy. You can get their head if you're lucky. But if you get their heart, you've done something really tremendously special. And so we shoot for all three. We want to have, we're not successful fully. Please don't misunderstand. We have bad reviews from Gallup and good reviews from Gallup, and we keep working on it. But I think that's it. It's that this company is people at its core. Doesn't matter what we make. Every company is the same. It's people, and what we do with those folks is is absolutely critical.
So, when it comes to keeping employees engaged, what are some ways that you see leaders having some success there? Because the same way, right? When it comes to engaging as a leader in training and coaching, being able to keep that up, but then as a leader who's then like instilling these values with their employees, how do you make it work?
I think in this area, we're part of the lean community, right? Lean is the Toyo production system, is what we call it in the US. And we've been part of that community for a long time. And it is such a ridiculously generous sharing community. I mean, everybody just uses the term pay it forward. And so everybody just gives ideas away and stuff away. And so anything we're doing here, we just call shamelessly borrowed, because we've seen it somewhere else with people that do it so spectacularly. And one of the things that I talked about, the 1U, so I won't go back into that. That's pretty critical, and that's fairly new. It's within the last 2 years that we formalized that. But one of the things we do that we're actually known for, like I think globally, actually globally, we've had visitors globally, is what we call our morning meeting. Every day, twice a day once for both shifts, but I call it the morning meeting is because I'm obviously working in the morning. for 15 minutes, we have an all employee meeting that is got a number of elements. It's volunteer led, and it's part of a bigger block of time we call lean and clean. And so the meeting, and then we clean our own building. We don't have a custodial staff. All of our leaders clean the bathrooms. It's actually an interview question sometimes for us. Are you willing to clean the bathroom if we're interviewing a potential leader? And then people go back and do lean improvements. And so this morning meeting, we've been doing now for 10 years. We've never missed one. If
Wow.
if the company's been open, we have never missed a morning meeting, including March 16th when COVID hit in 2020. And we immediately had to go close everything, and we had to kind of, reorient the plant. We went remote the next day and never missed a meeting. It's that important to us. And so this morning meeting, everybody gets together. We stand up out in the plant together, salaried, hourly, everybody's together. It's led by a volunteer. We have over 100 volunteers. That's part of our value in action of courage. Grab a mic. They spend the first 5 minutes sharing something, anything they want to share. They own it. They can do personal pictures. They can do whatever. Most people do some kind of personal update, share personal pictures. And so if you think about this concept that we as humans tend to naturally build walls between one another. It's our normal survival mechanism, right?
Mhm.
To create distance, and we're trying to break down distance. And so we try to get people to look at one another as, oh, that's Travis the dad, and that's Travis the guy that likes to go hiking and whatever, rather than Travis the knucklehead that just sent me the wrong part. And so the way I describe it is like we as individuals are always putting bricks in the wall, so the wall can get high enough and I can throw grenades over and I can hurt you without seeing you be hurt. But if I can keep that wall low enough where I have to look you eye to eye when I throw the grenade at you, I'm probably not going to throw it.
Yeah.
And so that's us. That's how I describe what we do. We just every day we work at taking the bricks out faster than people put them in. If that makes any sense at all.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like the visual that works for me.
Yeah.
And it's been successful. And so what we do after that person, we just do a meet and greet where we bump hands and shake hands, hug out. But then we do gratitude, and we ask people to grab the mic and just say what you're grateful for. Sometimes 2 people, sometimes 20 people. And we never limit the time. If we got 10 minutes of gratitude in the 15 minutes meetings, we never stop it. People just talk about their lives, about most of it's work gratitude for one another, but I would say 25% is just personal stuff. Sometimes people, I'm just grateful the Cardinals won. Could be anything. It doesn't matter. And then we celebrate with videos, daily improvements, cross-pollinate that sharing with videos. We have about probably 10,000 videos on our library of lean improvements, small lean improvements. Then we share critical data, sales quality, delivery, revenue every day, share what's going on, do announcements, all that stuff. And then we break off and start cleaning the building together. And that time, we literally have people travel to see us do it. We've had thousands of visitors just to watch the morning meeting. It is, in my experience, continues to be one of the most remarkable things I've ever been involved with in any context. And if I'm here, I never miss it. Never miss it. Even if I'm late for work, I come in from my car. I never miss it. And it's just that day, that part of the day where you just get to reset and remember everybody's here for the same reason. And then you go back to work and you think about the commitment that is, I've done the math. I was a CFO. That's about $500,000 a year commitment for us, probably north of $500,000 a year. And people are just stunned, like, what? You stop producing? And I say, no, we don't stop producing. We change our production. We stop producing heaters and air conditioners and ventilation units for about 30 minutes, and we produce lean improvements. That's what we do. We just change what we produce, and then we go back.
Would you talk more about that? Because I imagine business leaders are thinking about profitability. How do you balance this type of activity with profitability? So you said you changed the production schedule. How do you manage that?
Yeah, so it's a question I've gotten for years, and I've been unable to provide a satisfactory answer to it. What's the ROI? I'm standing up in those meetings as the CFO, and like, hey, you've been doing this, Kevin. You're the CFO. What's the ROI? And I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't actually give it to you, but I can tell you it works. For us, it's not either or, it's and. So our purpose is to enrich and just enrich lives. Just keep doing it better. We do things to do that, and we build things to do that. We have a product and we have customers. What we know is that we can't enrich lives unless we're constantly improving and profitable and constantly improving our profitability. Not in today's world. You grow or die. And so you're doing both simultaneously, and they're affecting each other. And so it isn't that we don't want to be profitable. We had a rough year last year. Our last fiscal year was a rough year, and it was the first year in 10 or 11 that we didn't have growth, and we had to make some difficult decisions. But it didn't change the fact that we were doing that, together, and we were responding to that and making sure we stayed profitable. And so we do the same thing. We have the same issues everybody else has with that, but we never leave our values when we do it. At least that's my perspective, is we don't leave our values when we do it. And so you have to do both. And so for me, and this is so counterintuitive as a CFO. When I say this to people, I think I blow their mind. Profit is not the objective, but it is the natural consequence. It's inside that conscious capitalism spectrum, I think. I'm not real familiar with that, but there's a lot of companies out there. Tugboat Institute, you can look that up, and there's a bunch of cool companies in tugboat that do this, privately held companies. But it's that concept that, yes, I have a bigger why. Our why is not profitability, but I don't get to do my why unless I'm profitable. And so I have to focus on profitability. So you're doing both simultaneously. I don't know if that's helpful, but
I feel like, Kevin, you're going to be getting a lot of resumes after people are listening to this.
It's a great place to work. I'm not going to lie. It's wonderful. I tell people, if you have an opportunity to do this kind of work once in your career, you're in probably the 5% of the working population. It's pretty remarkable.
Now, on the show, we generally talk about technology and the role of technology. And so I'm kind of curious, how has technology either supported this, hindered this? Like, what is the role of technology for you and, supporting leadership, coaching, and employee engagement?
It's interesting because we're so people-centric, we tend to default to people, and it can be easy to forget technology and data. You can't. I mean, we obviously can't in today's environment. And so we embrace it probably a little bit slower than others. We tend to run the experiment small until we learn. That's kind of a saying here: fail fast, fail cheap, fail forward, and run the experiment. And so we do that with technology too. We have some fast adopters, but generally we'll be a little slower. But we make a product that is inside advanced technology. We use natural gas and propane, for instance, to heat buildings. We can kill people off gas. We can blow things up. We use technology, and we constantly. We were saying before we started, we're an Epicor user. That's a use of technology for us. It's awesome. We're expanding our use of Epicor right now onto the shop floor more deeply than we have in the past. AI is starting. We had a video the other day of one of our engineers used AI to program SolidWorks to do something she didn't know how to do, but she knew how to ask the questions and kept refining AI, and AI wrote the program.
Incredible.
It's amazing. I use AI, and I've used ChatGPT in my coaching when I do 360 interviews, and then I have to gather the data and talk to the coaching client about it. It saves me hours and hours. So we're using it constantly.
That's great.
Salesforce, and it's not going to get less. It's going to get more. It's definitely going to get more, but it'll always be people doing the technology. And we can't forget that. It'll always be people that are executing the technology. And we just can't. It's so easy to forget about the people. They're authentic emotional beings. And they're the people that are going to be using that technology. They're the people that are scared of it because it may replace them. I mean, there's just all kinds of stuff we have to be aware of as leaders.
Yeah, we talk about that as well, being responsible with AI and being people-centric, human-centric, ensuring that you're empowering the users. I agree with that. Can I ask you, if we look out into the future, how do you see the role of leadership changing within the manufacturing space? And if you were to give advice, what do you encourage them to prepare for?
I don't know that I'm the right person to ask that. I can give you my personal opinion. I do believe that workforce expectations, that we see people as a single whole person, will continue to grow. I just think generationally that expectation is growing. I'm a late baby boomer. I didn't care if anybody cared about me. Like, just give me a job and give me good pay and a good bonus and I'm solid. I don't care if you care about me. And that's just not like that anymore. And that's a generalization. I apologize, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I think that's, as leaders, we're going to have to figure that out and be authentic in our leadership about how to deal with that. Technology is going to continue to rapidly change. We just talked about that, but it's always going to be people that are going to be at the center of that, successfully navigating that change. Here's one thing I talk to a lot of my coaching clients about is a leader is the ability and willingness to be transparent and vulnerable in your leadership. Brene Brown, who I think she still has one of the most popular TED Talks on vulnerability, if I'm not mistaken. This concept, it's so funny. If I had $1 for every coaching client that says, Kevin, I don't want to be vulnerable. Vulnerability scares me. I'm like, yeah, welcome to the club. Terrifies me too. But, as leaders, if we can figure out this command and control model is just getting less and less, it's not it. And I would say companies that remain with command and control, or if that's their model, they're just going to, they can be successful, but they're going to do it on, I believe, lower profitability and employee engagement. That's just my opinion. I think the onshoring is going to continue. My hope is it will continue. And that means we'll have more US companies, I hope, manufacturing companies. I hope there's kind of a rebirth in manufacturing. I've been through that cycle. I started in manufacturing in really the late 80s, I guess. And so I've seen some of that. And that's just, we're going to need more good leaders. Not managers, leaders.
It's going to become more and more important for sure. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I think this concept of, people that aspire to leadership and, what do we tell people that aspire to leadership as people that have done it for a long time and made a lot of mistakes? And what I usually say is with the young leaders, and I have young leaders in my coaching, some that are line supervisors. These are young leaders. First off, I say it's hard. Authentic, real leadership is hard. But anything that's worth doing is hard. And the concept that you have to put yourself fully into it, know that it's a journey and not a destination. That's one of the favorite sayings of our owner here is it's a journey, not a destination. I believe that. It's a continuous improvement journey, not a destination. We never become the best leader we can be. And to commit to being able to do that, know that you're not a manager, you're a leader. You're a leader that has management responsibilities, but you're not a manager, you're a leader. And when you lead people, and people are complicated. And so just be prepared to be a leader that loves your people. And I think the best leaders that I've ever worked for are the people that love their people. Mm-hmm. And don't lead if you can't love. I think that's for me. Don't lead if you can't love.
Yeah.
Or care. If you don't like love, say care. It's fine.
Yeah.
If you can't care.
That is great guidance. And I think that really matters. I mean, thinking about like the leaders in my life, and I'm sure listeners are thinking about the leaders that they're interacting with. And if they're leaders, it's a very important responsibility. And I really like too that you said that it can be any experience level. Even very young, new leaders could truly benefit from coaching, as well as those who are experienced and have been doing it for a long time could truly benefit because it continues to evolve. Well, this has been such a wonderful conversation. Like I said, Kevin, I think you're going to get a lot of resumes. If anybody wants to reach out to you, learn more about what you do, or connect to you, or learn more about Cambridge Air Solutions, where would you direct them?
For me, I just go to LinkedIn. I mean, you can get me on LinkedIn anytime. That's easy. Right. Cambridge, you can go to our website. And then I just to plug, I also work externally with a group of coaches that are executive coaches. They're the most ridiculously talented people in the world. It's called Encouraging Leaders. And so if you're looking for coaching resources, I would send you to Encouraging Leaders as well, because there's coaches out there that like I'm the bottom of the tier of experience on those coaches. I just happen to be one of them, but there's some fantastic leaders out there that know how to coach. And consider coaching. It really is worth it.
Well, this has been such a wonderful conversation. Kevin, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Enjoyed it.
All right. Well, that was Kevin Thompson, leadership coach at Cambridge Air Solutions and Encouraging Leaders. And to everyone listening in, thank you so much for being a part of the future of manufacturing.